What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Casey. This is my Jeep. On this upload, I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys have been leaving me down in the comments. Now, I usually reply to pretty much every comment or question that you guys leave down there, but I thought, why not collect up some of the most interesting ones and make a short video for this week's upload. With all that said, let's take a look at some of the questions you guys have left me over the past weeks and months, and I'm going to pick out a couple of the ones, well, more than a couple. I'm going to pick out some of the ones that I think have the most interesting and useful answers because I like to make videos that help you guys. So first question, what type of radios are you guys using? In mine, I have a rugged radio. Some of the other guys are using Baofeng. There's a couple other brands out there. I will be installing a CB radio, Cobra radio in Mark's Jeep as well as my Jeep. It's just a single little handheld unit. Like everything's in the handpiece and it's a little tiny module. And then we'll be running antennas and stuff to it. And I need that for Jeep Jamboree. CB isn't very popular around here and a lot of people are using VHF. Someone's asking, is that a wrap on the rig or paint? If you're talking about my Jeep has trail scales with. This was on the video where we broke Christian's ring and pinion on the front on his Dana 30. If you're talking about his Jeep with the Matrix graphics, it is well, it's almost a full wrap. It's not a full wrapped around edges wrap, but it's really tight edged panels on mine and several of the other rigs that you see the graphics on. Those are trail scales, and you can check them out on my website if you want, trailscales.com. Someone commented on my Jeep Gladiator Hercules video asking if I had 80 or 95K to buy one. I do not. I have a Corvette now, so definitely not going to be buying a Hercules Gladiator if they ever make one. Although I am thinking about getting a Gladiator, but you know, they're just really expensive up here in Canada with the exchange rate. It's 35%. I think what I'm going to do is wait until I can get a 1-year-old one. It really depends because our trails are so tight here that the extra 30 inches over the JKU would make it really difficult. So it's going to be, how many road trips do I go on? Because I think that would be a much better vehicle for taking on road trips, because this is not that comfortable, not very powerful, and it's a bit of a grind to get down into some of the other places. Oregon is about as far as I've gone in this, and that's about a 7-hour drive from the ferry. So for me to go to some of these events down in the States, I have to get off the island just to start. I'm hoping next year I'm able to get to a few more events, and maybe I can do a Jeep Gladiator build as part of that, and I can use that to get to like Moab. I'd like to get down to California as well, maybe into Nevada, things like that. Someone's asking about how I have my radio mounted. It's basically just screwed into the plastic along the top of my window. Nothing fancy. I use the bracket that came with it. And then I'm using basically a retractable line for the microphone, and I have it out on the roll bar, and I have it there because it's super quick and convenient to use while I'm driving, and if I'm standing outside the vehicle I can quickly grab it, pull it through the window, and talk on it as well. So just so you guys know, someone did comment, they contacted Warren about the pin in the Sidewinder winch hook, and somebody on Instagram is asking me how I've found the Sidewinder so far. I haven't actually had a chance to use it. I guarantee you I will be using it at Jeepapalooza, but someone contacted Warren and said you can't even get a replacement pin for that. So that is a bit disappointing to hear, because if you lose that pin, that thing is useless, and there is no pins to order. You could order a hyperlink that pins do fit in, but that is definitely a setback if you lose that pin or drop it, or as you saw, my hyperlink rattled, its pin loose, fell off. I'm sure somebody could have their pin rattle loose from their Sidewinder and have that fall out as well, and then that thing is basically useless. Funny, someone commented, I've used my high lift at least 30 times. That was on one of my videos where I did 5 mods I wish I did differently on my Jeep. I've never used my high lift. I actually damaged it backing into a tree, and I threw it into my Jeep parts boneyard. But funny enough, if you notice in the last vlog, when we're changing the Toyota's tire that went flat, used a high lift. However, I've never encountered a situation where I actually need one. I have a bottle jack in my Jeep as well as the factory jack, and that can pretty much lift it anywhere I need it. Ever have issues with your Jeep stalling? Actually, I did have some issues with my Jeep stalling. On my Jeep, I have a Trail Dash 2. It has different performance tunes that you can put on your Jeep. I did try running the 91 octane tune for a while, and I don't know, my Jeep has 190,000 kilometers on it. I don't know what that is in miles, probably like 120 or something like that. When I had the 91 tune on it, it when it was cold, it would flutter a little bit at idle, and twice actually it did stall at me while I was at a light, and it started right back up. I changed the plugs on it, changed the air filter, cleaned the throttle body. That didn't really help. I set it back to the 87 octane tune, and I haven't had a single issue since. So that's the only time I've ever really had issues with my Jeep stalling. Now I go back to 87. It runs just fine, and it saves me like 20 cents a liter on gas. I don't know what that is in gallons. Really good question about ABS lines. This was on my video where I replaced the brake lines. You guys saw it where I actually broke one of those brake lines. I think it got stuck in one of my my springs. And the question is about the ABS lines. Are they long enough? Actually, the ABS lines don't need to be extended. If you pop out the clip near the frame, it adds a lot of additional length to it. And my ABS lines are still longer than those Crown Automotive extended brake lines that I have. So there's not really any chance of those not being long enough. However, I go through wheel speed sensors and those lines a lot. And it's not because they're not too short. Usually it's a branch ripping them out, or it's a very, very common problem for these speed sensors to get dirt or muck in them. So they are long enough. However, I should start ordering those in bulk. Question about cameras, guys. You notice in my vlogs, especially when we're out off-roading, I get a lot of camera angles. I try to get as many different angles, from on Jeep shots to in-cab shots to me holding it to other people holding it. I film with one camera. I film with a single GoPro Hero 7 Black. The GoPro 7 is, to me, just the perfect camera for off-road vlogging because it's durable. I can get it hit with water or dirt or whatever, and it just keeps going. The stabilization on it is awesome, but overall I use one camera. I use GoPro Hero 7 Black, but I was thinking about this the other day actually, and I think I want to pick up a second one before I head to Jeepapalooza and Jeep Jamboree, because that just allows me to give it to somebody else to hold to try to get some more external shots. I just find the more angles, the more shots, it just makes a smoother, better looking vlog. But as of right now, I use one. A couple of people commenting, they're surprised I'm Canadian. I am. I live in Victoria, British Columbia, which is on the most western, southern tip of Canada, if you haven't already noticed that. Question, how many PSI do I run in my 37s? Well, on the road, I like 28 PSI. That's kind of been the perfect balance I found for not too much flightiness. I've gone up to as high as like 32 or 34, but I find it gets just a bit flighty on the highway because it's just too much air and it just kind of bounces around a bit. Anything lower, it's a bit too sluggish. So for me, on my tires, which is the Jeep is about 6,000 pounds with me in it, with 37s, I run 28 PSI. When I'm off-roading, I like to run about 8 PSI. And that really helps, and this is really depending on your tire. With my tires, I have BF Goodrich KM2s, and with the weight of my Jeep, 8 PSI seems to be kind of the sweet spot. It really my pattern, the tread really widens out. You can see it squish down as I'm airing down, and that's sort of how I judge where I need to be. Now, obviously, I use a gauge, but if you're looking on how to judge how much air to let out of your tire, you want to go to at least when your tire starts to soften up and you see the tread open up a little bit or widen out. Now, but if you're not running bead locks, anything below 15, maybe 12 PSI is really kind of pushing it, and you do run a risk of blowing a bead on the trail, but I have bead locks, so I don't really worry about that. However, I do find that I have, knock on wood, never had a flat tire or sidewall puncture, and having lower air in your tire makes that sidewall more pliable. The more air in it, it's like a balloon. Try to pop a balloon with very little air in it. It's very, very tough. Try to pop a balloon that's overinflated, pops really easily. And that's kind of my theory behind airing down lower, not only for grip, but I think it helps prevent sidewall punctures. Question about bead locks being road legal. Almost all bead locks say off-road use only. Check your local laws. There are some companies that do make street legal bead locks. Hutchison is a really well-known brand that makes street legal DOT approved bead locks. Mopar actually makes bead locks that are DOT approved as well, but a lot of them are not DOT approved for highway use. So the question is, are those legal? Not really, but you know, I maintain mine. I check the torque on them all the time. I'm not really overly concerned, and they haven't been a problem for me. I do not daily drive my Jeep, so I'm not driving around town all the time. It's typically only to and from the trails, so I'll leave that up to you guys. Question on the reliability of my 3.8 liter. To me, it's been fine. The previous owner, like, this was completely unmodified when I bought it. There was not a single thing done to it. It was all highway miles. They drove back and forth between the Yukon to Vancouver Island. So really, I just ripped out everything that had been worn out on it, but the engine was still strong. I barely burn any oil. It doesn't leak anything. So my 3.8 liter has been fine. However, Google it. There are tons of stories of people with 3.8 liters that have caused them problems. But for me, I haven't had any issues. There's a question here about what gear ratio to pick. In mine, I have 513 gears, and I have a Pro Rock 44 in the front. I wouldn't recommend 513 gears if you have a Dana 30, but if you have a 44, it's fine. I have on my Jeep is 3.8 liter with an automatic transmission. I think a 538 gear would be a bit better on the highway, but I think a 538 would reduce my reliability too much with a 44. If I were to go up to a Dana 60 or Dana 80, I would definitely go to a 538 gear. But as far as my Jeep goes, 513s is kind of the sweet spot. There is a really good set of guides out there for what gear ratio to go with if you have a 3.6 liter, 3.8 liter, automatic or manual transmission. All four of those components really do make a big difference in what type of gear you want to go with or what gear ratio you want to go with. It also depends on if you have 35s, 37s, or 40s, and I wouldn't run 40s on a 44. I would go up to a 60 if I was going to do that. But as far as gear ratios, I like the 513. 538 would be better, but too much risk because that pinion's getting really small. If you have a manual transmission, a 513 is going to be the sweet spot, I think, with a 3.8 liter. If you had a 3.6 liter, I think it's a 488 that's sort of the sweet spot for that, with an automatic, and a 456 even with a manual transmission. But it's best to check out that chart, and I would just ask around with some other people that have the same motor and same transmission and same tire size that you're going with, and see what their feedback is. So it really depends on what type of driving you do too. You can get away with slightly different gear ratios. Anyways, guys, just going through more of these comments. I think that's enough question answers for now. I really do appreciate all the comments and questions that you guys leave after each one of my videos. I think I'll do another one of these Q&As in a few months once I've collected another grouping of questions, but I will continue to answer all of your questions and comments on each video as I release them, and you leave comments and questions down below. I like to try to help you guys out, provide you with some useful information, and hopefully make your Jeeping experience a little bit better, or make your mod installation a little bit easier. With that said, thanks so much for watching this week's video. Leave me any comments or questions down below. I will do my best to help you out, clarify anything maybe I talked about in this week's video. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you are, thanks so much. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. Leave a like. Really do appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next upload.